The city of Dubai glittered like a sea of gold and glass, its towering skyscrapers catching the final rays of the setting sun as night began to breathe life and luxury into the streets. Inside the grand ballroom of the Al Zahara Palace, the air was thick with the scent of expensive perfume and the soft murmur of music and laughter. This was a place where the world's wealthiest gathered to celebrate, to see, and to be seen. Moving through the elegant crowd was Khalid, a name that commanded respect in every corner of the Middle East. He was a billionaire whose very presence turned heads. Yet his heart felt a quiet emptiness that no amount of money or admiration could ever fill. His tailored suit was flawless, his hair slicked back perfectly, and the watch on his wrist glittered under the massive chandelier. But tonight, none of it mattered. He'd been to countless parties like this, met countless faces, and still, that same familiar void haunted him. Wealth had brought him power, influence, and every comfort imaginable, but it had never given him the warmth of a true connection, the gentle laughter of someone who truly understood him, or the kind of love that could make life feel complete. Khalid's eyes drifted across the golden hall, scanning the sparkling gowns, the confident smiles, and the eager conversations. He braced himself for another evening of polite, meaningless compliments, another night of riches without purpose. But then, across the room, something or rather, someone caught his eye. In that moment, the world seemed to slow down. She was Aisha, a young woman with a quiet grace, standing alone in a corner. Her hands were clasped nervously as she adjusted the simple folds of her modest dress. Unlike everyone else, she didn't radiate the confident glow of wealth or entitlement. She was a single mother, struggling to make ends meet, and she had come to the palace not to be admired, but to perform. She was here to earn enough money to feed her daughter and pay the bills that seemed to pile up endlessly. Her dance was simple, yet so elegant. It was filled with a heartfelt emotion that spoke louder than words ever could. There was a natural rhythm in her movements, a softness that captivated anyone who happened to look her way. Yet, she moved as if she were invisible, accustomed to living in the shadows of the rich and powerful. Khalid felt an unexpected pull toward her, something he couldn't explain. It wasn't just her beauty. It was the sadness in her eyes, the quiet strength in her posture, and the way she moved as if every step carried a story, a secret part of herself that she had never shared with the world. He found himself moving through the crowd with a purpose that startled even him. When he reached her, he offered a warm, genuine smile, one he rarely showed in public. "Would you dance for me?" he asked. His voice wasn't the commanding tone of a billionaire, but was gentle, and it surprised her. She looked up, her eyes wide, unsure if she should trust him or reject the request. Sensing her hesitation, Khalid added, "I will pay you more than anyone else, just for tonight. Please, let me see your dance." Her lips trembled as she thought about his offer. She desperately needed the money, yes, but a strange feeling told her this wasn't an ordinary man or an ordinary request. Finally, she gave a small nod. The music began, soft at first, then rising like a tide, sweeping its rhythm across the ballroom. Aisha's dance was mesmerizing. She moved with a fluidity that seemed impossible, her feet barely touching the floor, her arms expressing a delicate balance of sorrow and hope. Each movement told a story of hardship and resilience, of sleepless nights spent worrying about her daughter, of waking before dawn to start her day, and of dreams she held quietly in her heart, dreams she thought were forever out of reach. Khalid watched, completely captivated, unable to tear his eyes away. As he watched, he felt something stir deep inside him, a warmth that had been missing for so long, a spark of something dangerous yet irresistible. It was hope. The intensity in her eyes seemed to speak directly to him, as if she could see past his wealth and into the heart of the man beneath the golden exterior. Time seemed to blur. The music faded from his ears, and all that existed in his world was Aisha, her movements, her presence, and the strange magnetic force pulling him closer than anyone had ever managed before. When the dance ended, the applause from the crowd was polite, but for Khalid, it felt as if the room had fallen silent, as if the world had paused to witness the truth her movements had just revealed. Aisha bowed slightly, a mix of shyness and pride on her face, and then, something small and unexpected happened. A handkerchief slipped from her sleeve, fluttering softly to the ground like a delicate leaf. Khalid bent down to pick it up. As he did, he noticed a small photograph tucked inside, folded carefully as if it were meant to be hidden but was somehow never forgotten. Curiosity got the better of him. He unfolded it carefully, revealing the image of a man. It seemed like an ordinary photo at first, but it carried a weight that made his heart stop for a moment. Khalid didn't recognize the man, yet there was something about the photo, the way it was kept, the emotion in Aisha's eyes that told him this was no ordinary image, no ordinary secret. He handed it back to her gently, not wanting to alarm her, but she didn't take it right away. Instead, she smiled, a small, sad smile, and whispered, "It's nothing, just a memory I keep close." But Khalid's curiosity was now burning hotter than ever. He wanted to know, to understand, to reach into the secret she guarded so carefully. He found himself thinking about her, long after the dance ended, about her life, her struggles, and the quiet dignity she carried in a world that so often overlooked people like her. He decided he would come back, not just as a man who wanted to be entertained, but as someone who wanted to know her story, and perhaps, if fate allowed, to change it in ways neither of them could ever imagine. The night continued on around them, but Khalid's mind was elsewhere. He watched Aisha disappear into the shadows of the ballroom. Her daughter was probably waiting outside for her, unaware of the magic her mother had just shared with the world. He felt a powerful urge to follow her, to see more, to uncover the secrets that made her who she was. As he stood there, alone amidst the glittering wealth and endless chatter, he realized that for the first time in his life, something mattered more than power, more than money, more than the endless pursuit of attention. Something human, fragile, and beautiful had entered his world, and it had the power to change everything. He didn't know what the future would bring, whether this encounter would lead to heartbreak, disappointment, or the kind of love he had only read about in books. But he knew one thing for certain: he could not ignore her. Something about Aisha had awakened a part of him that had been asleep for years, a part that longed for connection, for meaning, for a love that could finally pierce the loneliness he had carried even in his wealthiest moments. And so, Khalid decided right then, in that quiet moment amid the noise and glitter of the palace, that he would find a way to uncover her secret, not to control her, not to exploit her, but to understand, to protect. After that unforgettable night at the palace, Khalid could not get Aisha out of his mind. Her dance, her grace, and the quiet sadness in her eyes haunted him in ways he had never felt before. The city of Dubai sparkled outside his penthouse window, but no light could compare to the warmth he felt just thinking about her. Early the next morning, he found himself walking through the streets near her dance hall. He watched from a distance as she moved through her day with a quiet strength that made him admire her even more. She balanced her work at the small dance studio with chores, errands, and caring for her little daughter Leela, who followed her with bright eyes full of curiosity and love. Khalid noticed how patiently Aisha spoke to the children in the studio, guiding them through their steps, encouraging them, and yet never letting the exhaustion show on her face. He could see the lines of worry etched on her forehead, the way her shoulders carried an invisible weight. He felt a strange ache in his chest, realizing that no amount of wealth or luxury in his life could compare to the strength and beauty she displayed every single day. Khalid returned for the next few nights, always careful not to intrude, but wanting to understand her world, to see the person behind the captivating dance at the palace. Each visit revealed something new about Aisha. She was not only a talented dancer, but also a caring friend, a devoted mother, and a woman of quiet resilience who never asked for help. He began leaving small gifts at the dance hall: a warm coat for her daughter, a basket of groceries, sometimes even flowers, but always with a note that made her smile, never with his name attached. Aisha, curious about her mysterious benefactor, felt a mix of gratitude and caution. She had learned from life that people often used kindness as a mask for selfish motives, and she had promised herself she would never be fooled by wealth or charm again. And yet, deep down, she couldn't deny the sense of comfort these small acts brought her. A sense that someone was noticing her struggles and caring in ways that money alone couldn't explain. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the tall towers of Dubai, Khalid stayed longer at the dance hall, watching Aisha teach a small group of children. Her hands moved gracefully, correcting their posture, guiding their steps, and every now and then, she would smile at her daughter, who clung shyly to her side. Khalid could feel the warmth and love that radiated from her, a love that was pure and selfless. He realized that the photograph he had seen at the palace held more meaning than he first understood. There was a story there, a history that he did not yet know, and it called to him. He wanted to be part of it, not to rewrite it or interfere, but to witness it, support it, and perhaps, be allowed to hold a place in it. Aisha, unaware of his presence in the shadows, continued her lessons, her laughter mingling with the soft music playing from a small radio in the corner. The simplicity of her life, the honesty of her actions, and the depth of her care made Khalid's heart ache in a way he had never experienced. Determined to learn more, Khalid began introducing himself subtly. He attended events she performed at, offering polite applause from the audience, careful to be noticed but not to overwhelm her. Slowly, their interactions began to grow. He complimented her dancing, asked about her routines, and sometimes stayed afterward to help her pack up the studio or carry heavy bags. Aisha remained cautious, aware of the sharp divide between their worlds. She had learned to rely on herself, to face hardships alone, and she feared that letting Khalid too close might compromise her independence or put her daughter at risk. Still, there was an unspoken connection forming between them, a recognition that they were two people who, despite their differences, shared loneliness, resilience, and the desire to be understood. Khalid, sensing her wariness, never tried to rush things. He didn't flaunt his wealth. He didn't use influence or charm as a weapon. Instead, he used patience, observation, and sincere kindness, showing her that he cared for who she was, not what she could provide or represent. As days turned into weeks, Khalid learned more about Aisha's life. he discovered that her husband had passed away years ago, leaving her to raise Leela alone. He saw the sacrifices she made to keep her daughter safe, fed, and happy, often working late nights and teaching dance in the early mornings. He also noticed small habits that spoke volumes about her character, the way she refused charity when offered publicly, the way she quietly helped neighbors in need, and the way she held her daughter close even when exhausted. Each observation deepened his admiration and drew him closer to a truth he had never acknowledged in his life, that love, kindness, and resilience could not be measured by wealth or status. Khalid began to imagine a future where he could be part of her world, supporting her in ways that mattered, not with grand gestures or empty promises, but with understanding, respect, and genuine care. Yet, despite the growing connection, tension lingered in the air. Khalid knew that the photograph she carried was still a secret, and though he longed to ask about it, he feared overstepping. He watched her quietly one evening as she tucked her daughter into bed and whispered stories to her in the soft glow of a single lamp. The sight made something ache in Khalid's chest. He wanted to be someone she could trust, someone she could lean on, but he also wanted to respect her space and her choices. The balance was delicate. Like a dance itself, one misstep could shatter the fragile trust they were beginning to build, and so he waited, patient yet restless, observing her from the edges of her world, silently wishing for the moment when she would choose to share her secret with him willingly. One night, as the city lights reflected on the glass buildings and the call to prayer echoed softly in the distance, Khalid finally found an opportunity to speak to Aisha alone. She had stayed late after a performance, packing up the studio by herself. He approached her gently, his tone soft and careful. "I see how hard you work," he said. "I see what you do for your daughter, for these children, for everyone. You are strong, and I want to help, if you'll let me." Aisha paused, unsure whether to trust the stranger who had slowly become a presence in her life. She looked at him, her eyes searching, and finally said, "You do not know me. You do not know what I have lost or what I carry. How can you understand?" Khalid nodded, acknowledging the truth in her words. "I may not know everything," he said softly, "but I want to know. I want to understand. I am willing to wait, and I am willing to listen." Her expression softened, a mixture of caution and curiosity. For the first time, she allowed herself a small opening, a crack in the walls she had built around her heart. They talked quietly as the studio emptied, sharing small stories of their lives, Khalid of his childhood, the loneliness behind his wealth, the emptiness that money could never fill, and Aisha of her struggles, her fears, and her small joys. Though they spoke in simple words, the emotions between them ran deep, creating a bond that grew stronger with every passing minute. Khalid realized that connection was not built with gifts or grand gestures. It was built with honesty, attention, and the willingness to see the person behind the smile, the dance, and the struggle. As the night deepened, Khalid left the studio, his heart heavy with longing, but light with hope. He knew that the secret photograph still remained a barrier, a story she had not yet shared. But he also knew that trust was not something to force, and love was not something to demand. He would wait, patiently, respecting her pace, and in doing so, he hoped that one day, she would let him into her life fully. Walking through the quiet streets of Dubai, Khalid looked at the stars above, reflecting on the strange and unexpected turn his life had taken. A simple dance, a small handkerchief, and the quiet courage of a single mother had shaken him more than any business deal, any fortune, or any title ever could. For the first time, he felt that life was not about power or wealthy, was about connection, understanding, and the fragile beauty of hearts willing to open. And so, the stage was set. Khalid's curiosity had grown into admiration, his admiration into care, and care into something that teetered dangerously close to love. Aisha, unaware of the depth of his feelings, continued her life with quiet dignity, yet even she could not deny the sense that someone extraordinary was watching, waiting, and slowly becoming a part of her world. The photograph remained a mystery, the secret still unspoken, but both of them were drawn together by invisible threads of fate, patience, and growing affection. The story of Khalid and Aisha was no longer just about a dance or a fleeting encounter. It was about two hearts beginning a journey that neither of them could have anticipated, a journey that would test their courage. Days turned into weeks, and Khalid's visits to Aisha's world became a quiet rhythm he couldn't escape. It was more than just a fascination now. Every time he saw her, he discovered another layer of the depth that made her so extraordinary. He saw the way she carried herself, even when pure exhaustion was written on her face. He caught the small, secret smiles she gave her daughter when she thought no one was watching. He noticed the gentle patience she showed to everyone around her, a kindness that seemed to flow from her effortlessly. One rainy afternoon, a scene unfolded that struck Khalid to his very core. He saw Aisha helping an elderly neighbor carry groceries inside. Her hands were full, her hair damp from the steady drizzle, but her face showed nothing but genuine care. He watched from across the street, completely unnoticed. He saw her gently wipe a tear from the old woman's cheek and whisper words of comfort. In that moment, Khalid felt his chest tighten with an emotion he couldn't name. He had always believed that love was about grand gestures, about displays of wealth and power. But now, he saw the truth. True love was in the quiet, unseen acts of kindness, the ones that spoke louder than any diamond or gold. It was in the strength to give without expecting anything in return, and the courage to keep moving forward, no matter how hard life got. That evening, Khalid found himself lingering at the dance hall long after her performance. He waited for a moment to speak to her privately. He admired the way she interacted with her students, gently correcting their posture, encouraging them to try again when they faltered, and laughing softly when they made mistakes. Her daughter, Leela, followed her closely, mimicking her every graceful movement. Khalid could see the powerful bond between them, a connection built on trust, love, and a deep, mutual respect. When Aisha finally noticed Khalid waiting, she greeted him with a polite smile. It was still cautious, but he saw a softness in her eyes that hadn't been there before. This time, when Khalid complimented her dance, his words were different. He didn't just speak of her beauty, but of the heart, the emotion, and the raw dedication she poured into every single step. Aisha felt a warmth spread through her, something she couldn't quite explain. It was a feeling that this man saw her not just as a performer, but as a woman, a mother, and a human being deserving of respect. Over time, Khalid began to share more about his own life, opening up in ways that surprised even himself. He spoke of the profound loneliness that hid behind his riches, the emptiness that came from a life spent chasing power, and the deep longing for connection he had buried in his heart for so long. Aisha listened quietly. At first, she was skeptical, unsure if his words were genuine or just another well-practiced attempt to charm her. But as the days turned into weeks, she noticed a real change in him. She saw his patience, his genuine willingness to listen, and the complete absence of any expectation. He never offered money to solve her problems or used his influence to impress her. Instead, he offered something far more valuable: his understanding, his presence, and his respect for her struggles. Slowly, so slowly, the walls she had built around her heart began to tremble. Tiny cracks started to form, letting in small rays of light where trust could one day begin to grow. Khalid sensed this subtle shift and felt a cautious hope blossom within him. It was a hope that their connection could become something deeper, something real. One evening, after another long day at the studio, Khalid and Aisha found themselves walking along a quiet street near the water. The city lights shimmered on the surface of the canal, casting a golden glow on their faces. They talked about simple things, at first the weather, the music she liked, the small joys of everyday life. But gradually, the conversation drifted to more personal shores. Khalid shared memories of his childhood, of feeling invisible despite all the wealth that surrounded him, of moments of loneliness that had left scars even money couldn't heal. In turn, Aisha spoke of her late husband. She talked about the hardships of raising Leela alone and the dreams she once held that now seemed so distant, so impossible. As they walked side by side, a comfortable silence settled between them. It wasn't awkward, it was filled with the unspoken understanding that they were slowly, carefully, becoming part of each other's world. And Khalid felt something stirring deep inside him, a feeling he had never experienced before. It went beyond admiration, beyond care. It touched the very edges of love. Despite their growing bond, the photograph still lingered in the back of Khalid's mind. He knew it represented a secret from Aisha's past, something she hadn't yet shared, and he felt a mix of curiosity and caution. He didn't want to push her. He understood that trust couldn't be rushed. So, he focused on just being present, on supporting her quietly, and on proving through his actions that he was different from the men she had known before. He helped with small tasks, offered a steady stream of encouragement, and celebrated her successes, no matter how small they seemed. Aisha, noticing his consistency and sincerity, began to allow herself moments of vulnerability. A smile here, a shared laugh there, a brief conversation that hinted at the walls around her heart finally beginning to soften. Khalid cherished each and every one of these moments. He was learning that love wasn't about grand gestures, but about patience, empathy, and unwavering respect. One night, as the city slept and the distant sounds of life faded into a quiet hum, Khalid found Aisha sitting alone on a small balcony, watching the stars. He joined her silently, not speaking at first, simply sharing the space and the quiet beauty of the night. Finally, he spoke, his voice soft. "I know there is something you are holding back. I don't want to force it from you, but I hope, one day, you will trust me enough to share it." Aisha looked at him, her eyes reflecting a storm of emotions: fear, caution, and the faintest spark of hope. She wanted to tell him, she wanted to unburden herself of the weight she carried, but the fear of judgment, of being misunderstood, of losing control over the life she had fought so hard to build, held her back. Khalid simply nodded, understanding her hesitation. He said only, "I will wait. I am willing to wait as long as it takes." That night, a silent promise formed between them. It was a promise of patience, of understanding, and of a potential for love that neither had expected, but both now quietly hoped for. As the weeks passed, Khalid became a fixture in Aisha's life. He wasn't the wealthy stranger anymore. He was someone genuinely invested in her well-being, her happiness, and her dreams. They shared small joys, walks along the waterfront, quiet conversations in the park, laughter over minor mishaps, and moments of comfort when the weight of the world felt too heavy to bear. Khalid admired her incredible resilience and the unconditional love she poured into her daughter's life. And Aisha began to recognize that his intentions were pure, that his presence wasn't a threat, but a source of support. Slowly, the bond between them strengthened, forming a foundation built on trust, respect, and the first glimmers of real affection. And yet, the photograph, the secret it held, and the unknown past, still hovered in the air, a delicate, invisible thread connecting their lives in ways they didn't yet fully understand. Khalid knew the journey ahead wouldn't be easy. Love, he was realizing, was not a straight path. It required immense patience, empathy, and courage. He already saw that Aisha was not just a beautiful dancer or a single mother. She was a woman of incredible depth, courage, and heart. And he wanted to be part of her life for more than just fleeting moments. He wanted to stand by her, not as a billionaire with power, but as a man capable of true love, understanding, and devotion. Aisha, meanwhile, had begun to sense that Khalid was truly different from anyone she had ever known. His patience, his kindness, and his genuine interest in her life were slowly chipping away at the walls she had built to protect herself and her daughter. Though the photograph remained a mystery, both of them were learning that trust and love could grow even in the presence of secrets. They were learning that hearts willing to be patient and understanding could always find a way to connect, and that destiny often works quietly, waiting for just the right moment to reveal its truth. And so, the bond between Khalid and Aisha deepened, built on shared moments, on empathy, and on the slow, beautiful realization that love could grow from patience, respect, and understanding. Their story was no longer just about a dance or a mysterious photograph. It was about two hearts beginning to intertwine, learning to trust, and discovering that true connection, even in a world filled with wealth and loneliness, could create the foundation for something real, lasting, and beautiful. The stage was now set for the next chapter of their story where secrets would finally surface, emotions would intensify, and the fragile beauty of their budding love would be tested in ways neither of them could ever have imagined. The air between Khalid and Aisha had grown warm and comfortable. A quiet bond formed from shared moments, gentle words, and subtle acts of care. Yet beneath this comfort lingered the photograph, the secret she had carried for so long, a story she had never spoken aloud. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the Dubai skyline, casting long golden shadows across the streets, Khalid finally asked again, his voice gentle, "Aisha, I have to know, who is in that photograph?" Aisha's hands froze, her eyes looking away as a mixture of fear, sadness, and hesitation flickered across her face. For years, she had carried the memory of her late husband in that small, worn image. He was a man who had been both her hero and her greatest love, someone who had shaped the life she now led. She had never shared the story with anyone, not even her closest friends. She feared that revealing it would make her vulnerable in ways she simply wasn't ready for. Khalid reached out, not to touch her, but to offer silent reassurance. "You don't have to tell me if you're not ready," he said softly, "but I want to understand, and I want to be here when you are." His sincerity shone through his eyes. And for the first time, Aisha felt a flicker of trust strong enough to consider opening her heart. The night they finally spoke of the photograph was quiet, intimate, and heavy with emotion. In the soft glow of her apartment, Aisha revealed that the man in the picture was her late husband. She described a brave, kind-hearted man who had passed away tragically in an accident years ago. She spoke of his deep love for her and their daughter, the sacrifices he had made, and the immense heartbreak of losing him so suddenly. Khalid listened intently, his gaze unwavering, feeling every word, every pause, and every tear as if it belonged to him too. Then, in a moment that neither of them could have predicted, Aisha shared something that took Khalid's breath away. She explained that her husband had once saved Khalid's life. It happened during a dangerous business trip, a critical accident that could have cost Khalid everything. The man in the photograph, the man Aisha had loved and lost, had stepped in, indirectly responsible for Khalid's own survival. Khalid's eyes widened in shock and awe as he realized the connection. Fate, it seemed, had been quietly weaving their lives together long before they had even met. The revelation made his heart pound, not with anger or regret, but with an intense mix of awe, respect, and an unexplainable sense of destiny. Aisha's confession brought tears to both their eyes, a shared understanding forming that their meeting had never been mere chance. Khalid's admiration for her deepened, but so did the weight of responsibility he felt, not as a billionaire trying to control her life, but as a man whose heart had been irrevocably touched. He knew his presence could change the course of her and her daughter's lives. Yet, even with this powerful revelation, a quiet tension lingered. Aisha, despite the trust she had begun to place in Khalid, remained cautious. She had survived alone for so long, and she feared that love, even this promising, fated connection, could bring new heartbreak, new risks, and new losses. Khalid, sensing her hesitation, vowed silently to prove that his intentions were genuine. He would show her that his love was not contingent on power or money, and that he would stand by her without trying to dominate her life. Days passed, and Khalid became more involved in Aisha's life, not with grand gestures, but with steady, thoughtful support. He helped with practical matters, fixing small problems in the dance studio, arranging for supplies, and quietly assisting her daughter with educational needs. He was always careful to act with discretion and respect, never overstepping. Aisha noticed the consistency, the absence of expectation, and the quiet patience he showed. Slowly, her heart began to open even further. She realized that Khalid's presence was no longer a threat to her independence, but a source of strength and comfort. Still, there were moments of conflict, small misunderstandings fueled by pride and fear. Aisha would question whether she could truly let anyone, even Khalid, become a part of their lives. She worried about being hurt again, about losing control, and about whether destiny had truly brought them together or if this was just another fleeting connection. One afternoon, a misunderstanding arose when Aisha saw Khalid speaking to another woman at a charitable event. Though the conversation was purely business, Aisha's mind filled with doubt and insecurity. A surge of fear washed over her, the worry that Khalid might not truly understand the importance of loyalty and trust in her world. Khalid noticed the change in her demeanor immediately. Instead of reacting with frustration, he approached her with calm and honesty. He explained the situation patiently, reassuring her that nothing could diminish the bond they were building, that his heart had chosen her and her daughter alone. The conversation, though tense, ultimately strengthened their connection. It taught them both that love required communication, patience, and forgiveness, especially when past pain and insecurities threatened to interfere. The ultimate test came when Khalid, knowing the depth of her fear, made a choice that defined his love. He offered her complete freedom to make her own decisions, to maintain her independence, and to live her life without pressure or expectation, while quietly ensuring that her safety, happiness, and dreams were protected from a distance. Aisha, witnessing his selflessness, felt the walls around her heart crumble further. She began to see that love was not about possession or control, but about trust, patience, and mutual respect. The photograph, once a symbol of hidden sorrow, now became a bridge between them, a reminder of the past, a connection to destiny, and a silent promise that their lives were intertwined in ways neither had fully understood until now. That evening, Khalid and Aisha walked along the waterway, the city lights reflecting in the calm ripples, holding space for their emotions without words. Khalid finally said what had been growing in his heart for months. "I cannot change the past, Aisha, but I want to be part of your present and your future. I want to love you, not for what you have lost or endured, but for who you are and the strength you carry." Aisha looked at him, tears glistening in her eyes, and for the first time, allowed herself to imagine a life where love was possible, where she could trust someone completely, and where her daughter could see happiness reflected in the faces of those who cared for them. The conflict, the fears, and the tension of the unknown began to dissolve as they realized that love, patience, and honesty had brought them to this moment. It was a moment where hearts could meet fully, where trust could flourish, and where destiny had proven itself in the most extraordinary way. As the night deepened and the distant call to prayer echoed softly over the city, Khalid and Aisha stood together on the edge of the water, feeling the quiet magic of the connection that had grown between them. The photograph had revealed a secret, yes, but it had also illuminated the path to love, trust, and a future neither had imagined. Their hearts, once guarded and weary, now beat in quiet harmony, ready to face whatever challenges fate might send. They were strengthened by the knowledge that destiny had already brought them together, and that love, when patient and true, could conquer fear, uncertainty, and the scars of the past. The story of Khalid and Aisha was no longer just about a dance, a handkerchief, or a mysterious photograph. It was about the meeting of hearts, the triumph of trust, and the quiet, powerful promise of a love that would endure. After the truth of the photograph came to light, a new chapter began for Khalid and Aisha. It was a time filled with a quiet, fragile hope, a beautiful feeling that grew stronger with every shared glance and every soft laugh. Khalid, now understanding the depth of Aisha's past and the sacrifices she'd made for her daughter, Leela, dedicated himself to being a man she could truly rely on. He wasn't a wealthy benefactor looking for admiration. He was simply a man whose heart had been completely captured by her strength, her kindness, and the incredible love she had for her child. On the other side, Aisha began to let her guard down, ever so cautiously. The high walls she had built around her heart started to soften. She saw in Khalid a partner she could finally trust, someone who would stand beside her, not in front of her. He respected her fierce independence and honored the difficult path she had walked. Together, they started the delicate dance of building a new love, learning to balance their different worlds, support each other's dreams, and embrace the idea that happiness was possible, even after years of struggle and loss. Khalid's presence became a constant source of comfort and stability. He wasn't loud or demanding, he was just there, you'd find him quietly helping out at the dance studio, his sleeves rolled up, a look of concentration on his face. He'd join Aisha and Leela on long walks through the city, listening intently as Leela chattered on about her day. In the evenings, he would simply sit with them, sharing stories and laughter that filled the empty spaces in their home and in their hearts, spaces that had been silent for far too long. One sun-drenched afternoon, Khalid surprised them with a small, perfect picnic by the waterway. It was a simple gesture, but it meant the world. The three of them sat on a blanket, laughing as they tossed breadcrumbs to the ducks, sharing sandwiches, and watching the golden sunlight sparkle on the gentle ripples of the water. For the first time in what felt like a lifetime, Aisha felt completely at ease. Her anxieties, her constant fears, were quieted by Khalid's unwavering patience and his gentle care. In that moment, she realized something profound. Love didn't have to be a grand, overwhelming spectacle. It could be quiet, it could be steady, it could be nurturing, built on a foundation of understanding, trust, and shared moments just like this one. Watching Aisha's face light up with a genuine, unguarded smile, Khalid felt his own heart swell with a mix of relief and pure joy. The woman he had admired from afar was slowly, surely, letting him into her world. The bond that had started so tentatively, so cautiously, had blossomed into something real, something enduring. It was a love that neither of them had dared to hope for when their journey first began. As evening fell and the city lights began to twinkle, reflecting like 1,000 scattered jewels across the water, Khalid had another idea. He invited Aisha back to the very place where their story had started, the courtyard of the palace where they first met. He wanted to recreate the moment that had changed everything. As the soft music began to play, Aisha's first few steps were hesitant, a mirror of her own heart. But Khalid took her hand gently, his touch firm but not forceful. He guided her without pressure, allowing her to lead, to set the pace. As they moved together under the desert sky, the air around them seemed to hum with unspoken emotion. The shadows of the past, the ghosts of old heartaches, seemed to dissolve into the warm, golden glow of the present. Little Leela watched from the side, clapping her hands softly, her eyes shining with pure delight. She was seeing her mother happy in a way she never had before. In the middle of the dance, Khalid and Aisha shared a long look. A silent understanding passed between them. This wasn't just a repetition of a past event. It was a celebration of their entire journey, of the trust they had built, the patience they had shown, and the love that had grown through empathy and shared vulnerability. Every step, every graceful turn, spoke of courage and the incredible beauty of finding someone who truly sees you for who you are and chooses to stay. That night, with the stars scattered like diamonds across the velvet sky, Khalid finally spoke the words that had been blooming in his heart since the very first night he saw her dance. "I can't promise that life will be perfect," he said softly, his voice full of emotion. "But I can promise to be here, with you and with Leela, every single step of the way. I want to love you fully, to honor your past, and to build a future together." Tears streamed down Aisha's face, but they were tears of joy and relief. She placed her hand on his and whispered, "I believe in us. I trust you, and I want to try. For the first time, I feel safe letting someone in." In that instant, the bustling city around them seemed to fade away, leaving only the quiet intimacy of two hearts that had found their way to each other against all odds. Khalid and Aisha embraced, no longer defined by wealth or by struggle, but as two souls who had discovered that love, true love, could heal, connect, and transform even the loneliest of hearts. In the weeks that followed, their relationship deepened, woven together with simple joys and meaningful moments. Khalid was a man of his word. He continued to respect Aisha's independence, offering his support without ever trying to control her, celebrating her incredible resilience at every turn. And Aisha, in turn, allowed herself to lean on him. She learned to accept care, to embrace the happiness she had denied herself for so long. Together, they created a tapestry of new memories. They walked along moonlit canals, their hands intertwined. They shared quiet dinners, their conversation easy and comfortable. They celebrated Leela's small achievements with more enthusiasm than any grand event. And of course, they danced. They danced in the courtyards where their story first began. Each dance a reaffirmation of their love. Every act, every smile, every touch, reinforced a powerful bond that had started with a simple dance and a mysterious photograph but had grown into something far deeper, a love rooted in trust, understanding, and destiny. The final scene of their story unfolded one golden evening. Khalid, Aisha, and Leela stood together on a small balcony, overlooking the magnificent city skyline. Khalid held Aisha's hand tightly, while Leela was tucked close to her mother's side. The warm wind carried the gentle sounds of the city below, a symphony of life. Khalid leaned in and whispered, "No matter what comes, we face it together." Aisha smiled, her eyes glistening with happy tears, and replied with a single, powerful word, "Together." They shared a tender embrace. The weight of the past finally lifted, the uncertainty of the future softened by the certainty of their love. The promise of a future, written by their own hearts, stretched out before them. That photograph, once a symbol of mystery and sorrow, had transformed. It was now a testament to fate, to resilience, and to the profound way that love, when it is patient and genuine, can bridge worlds, heal the deepest wounds, and create a story truly worth living. In that quiet, perfect moment, overlooking the glittering city, the hearts of Khalid and Aisha beat as one. Their love story, which had begun with a dance, endured through secrets and fears, and now stood victorious, ready to face the world, hand in hand. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this story, please like, share, and subscribe for more.